Today I'm going to show you how to do this format so that you have an explanation ready for your test. The example I'm going to use comes from Chapter 4. Your test, you will be doing Chapter 5. So it's a little bit different, but you'll follow the same process. Step 1 is to read the question. So I'm just going to read the question so I can understand what I'm looking for. Question says, in Chapter 4, why doesn't the group want Salva along? In Chapter 4, why doesn't the group want Salva along? So now I kind of have an idea of where to go. I know that I want to go to Chapter 4, page 21, and find a quote that tells me why the group doesn't want Salva. So I'm going to start with my C. Always, always, always start with your C. So I'm going to go ahead. This is Chapter 5, so I'm going to go back to Chapter 4, page 21, right here. And if I read through it, I can see around this area a couple of reasons why they wouldn't want him. It says, Salva saw doubt on the people's faces. Several men at the front of the group began speaking to each other. He is a child. He will slow us down. Another mouth to feed? It's already hard enough to find food. He's too young to do any real work. He'll be of no help to us. So there's about 3 reasons here why they don't want him, but I'm going to only choose one quote because you want your C, your quote, to only be about 1 to 2 sentences long. So we're going to use this one right here. He is a child. He will slow us down. So I get to my C, and the first thing I need to do is reference my source. What that means is I need to tell where I got this information from. Since I'm pulling the quote from a book, all I have to say is, according, let me change this. Make it bigger so you can see it. According to the text. And the next thing I need to do is to tell who says the quote in this case. Sometimes it'll be Salva saying the quote. Sometimes it'll be the author who says the quote. In this case, though, it is one of the men at the front of the group. One of the men. So I'm going to write, according to the text, someone in the group says, and then I'm going to write my quote, making sure that I put a quotation mark at the beginning and I copy it word for word from the text. He is a child, period. He will slow us down, period. Oops. He is a child, period. He will slow us down, period. And then I want to put a quotation at the end and the page number in parentheses. You have to make sure that you have all of these things. Quotation marks at the very beginning of your quote. Right here and right here. And also a page number in parentheses at the end of the sentence. And don't forget to reference your source by saying according to the text, or in the book it says, or in Chapter 4, as long as you're referencing where you got it from. So now that I have my evidence, I'm ready to complete an answer. So we're going to go back up to the R. And the R is where you need to restate this question, the original question, into a statement. So the question is, in Chapter 4, why doesn't the group want Salva along? If I'm going to answer that in a complete sentence, I'm going to use the same exact words that were used in the question, except I'm not going to use this question word, why, because I don't need that. Do not use the word why. So I'm going to say, in Chapter 4, the group doesn't want Salva along because, and now I'm ready to formulate an answer. Looking at this quotation where it says he's a child and he will slow us down, that tells me that they maybe don't want Salva along because he'll make the trip longer or more difficult. So that's what I'm going to put down. In chapter 4, the group doesn't want Salva along because they believe he will make the journey more difficult. Notice that I did not repeat the quote. You don't want to ever repeat the quote or repeat yourself in general. So if you see yourself writing in chapter 4, the group doesn't want Salva along because he will slow them down, you need to rearrange that or take that out because you have the words he will slow us down in the quote. You do not want to repeat yourself. So I have my R, my A, and my C, and the final thing I'm going to do is to explain my quote. Basically, what I'm going to do is take each of these words in the quote and put them into different words. I'm going to come up with synonyms to explain them. So instead of saying the word he, we're going to say Salva, since that's who we're talking about. Instead of saying he is a child, you're going to come up with a synonym or a different way to say that. Now, some people can come up with that off the top of their head. They can say Salva is young. But if you're not able to, you can do a tool on the computer. You can press Control-Alt, click on the word, and then go to this Define button right here. And on the right-hand side, you'll see a definition of the word you clicked on and a lot of synonyms. So we have youngster, little one, boy, girl, baby, infant, toddler. Some of these wouldn't work because he's not a toddler or a baby, but we can use is a young boy, So that's what I'll use. Salva is just a young boy. The group, or instead of saying group, because I don't want to say group again, I could say the refugees think that he will, instead of saying slow us down, I want to reword that into something different. So I'm going to look up another word for slow to come up with a way to word this. And I see leisurely, steady, slow moving, sluggish, and I really like that word sluggish. I think it's strong, so I'm going to use that. The refugees think he will move at a sluggish pace. So now what I've done is I've taken this quote, he is a child, he'll slow us down, and I've explained it by using other words. Salva's just a young boy, the refugees think he will move at a sluggish pace. The last part of the E is to connect it back to your answer. How does this prove that he's going to make the journey more difficult? So that's what you're going to say. This shows that the journey will be more difficult if they take Salva along because, and now you have to get a little creative. Why is the journey going to be difficult? And instead of saying difficult, let's use a different word. Let's use the word strenuous. The journey will be strenuous if they take Salva along. And we know that it's going to be strenuous because if he's moving at a sluggish pace, then that means that the other people will have to take care of him. And that, of course, means that it's going to be more difficult. So this shows that the journey will be more strenuous if they take Salva along because they will have to take care of another person. Or they will have to wait on another person, since we're talking about the pace that he moves at. And that is how you do race format. So your complete question and answer should say, in Chapter 4, why doesn't the group want Salva along? In Chapter 4, the group doesn't want Salva along because they believe he will make the journey more difficult. According to the text, someone in the group says, he is a child, he will slow us down. Salva is just a young boy. The refugees think that he will move at a sluggish pace. This shows that the journey will be strenuous if they take Salva along because they will have to wait on another person. Now you're going to try doing the same process with your Chapter 5 question. Good luck!